Okay, so Spiral is the sequel to the novel version of The Ring, which, by the way, the novel is the original version in which the movies were made. And Spiral, though, is nothing like The Ring 2 that you saw from Hollywood. So we're going to talk about that. That's the latest book. I just finished reading that yesterday, and I wrote a review. I'm at my girlfriend's house, and you may wonder why everything looks so different. That's why I had a MRI today. In fact, they probably take that bandage off. I have something wrong with my throat, and we can't figure out what it is. And I had a CAT scan, and that didn't really tell us much. And so we had an MRI so that my ENT can look at that and then possibly do a biopsy where they're going to cut me open and poke around at whatever that thing is growing inside me. So that's why I'm here. So one of the things I do, by the way, hi, my name is Cody Siangdal. I'm the author you know. I'm the author of five novels, soon to be six, on Amazon, and two nonfiction works as well. I want you to know that the ailment that I have with my mouth is causing my tongue to swell, my gums to ache. All these things are happening, so it makes it a little difficult for me to speak. But we're going to get through this together. All right. So, anyway, I feel like as an author, part of my job is to constantly be reading other people's work, and then also because I so need to have reviews and people reading my books to help the algorithm and to encourage other people to read my stuff, that I do it for other people. And so if you're a living author and I read your book and I like it, and then I'm going to give it a 5-star review. If I don't like it, then I'm just going to be quiet about it because either I like it or I don't, and I don't want to hurt anybody's algorithm. So I give 5-star reviews, or I just don't give them. This is the way it works with me. Why? Because I want 5-star reviews. All right, so I try to read. I'm always reading some novel, and I try to read at least one a month. I'm trying to pick up the pace a little bit, and every October I read. Uh, I switch to horror because horror is one of my original favorite genres, and I actually used to write horror. And like back when I was a kid in high school, college, I guess around that age, I wrote horror stories. Um, I there's a little bit. In fact, I just got done writing a chapter in my current work, which is the French Fiasco, and chapter 28 is called "The Rise of the Republic." And I use elements of horror. I'm not saying it's a horror story, but I use elements of horror to help create suspense, and it's fun. I've always liked it, and I'm a big fan of it. I like scary movies, so Laura and I we try to watch a bunch of uh, scary movies around Halloween, and then I try to read a bunch of novels. So I read, I finished The Ring, and that was like just a few days before Halloween, and I liked it so much that uh, I just felt compelled to read the next book. And I think there was at least four now in that series. And I will tell you this: that if you've seen the American movies, The Ring, they are a derivative of a derivative, which is kind of interesting because uh, the book talks about making, if you're familiar with the story of the ring, there's a mysterious videotape that people watch. And if you watch the tape, you get a phone call saying, you're going to die in 7 days. And then, 7 days, this is the movie. This scary girl crawls out of your television and you die. Uh, I will tell you this: I read the first two books of um, Koji Suzuki. There are no girls crawling out of televisions. I hate to disappoint anybody, but I think that is something that came out of the Japanese version of the movie. So we'll back up here. So The Ring was written, I think, around 1991 by Koji Suzuki, and it was made into a Japanese film that already deviated quite a bit from the original novel. but is a little closer to it than like the American version. But in that movie, you have the girl crawling out of the television at the end, so that's kind of like a big moment. I think they do that sooner in the American movie. So when they made the American movie, The Ring, which I really liked, and I think it's one of my top 10 favorite horror movies. They that gimmick of her crawling out of the TV, I think they did it at least twice, if not more. Uh, and it's great, and it's kind of like what that what the American cinematic series is known for is, Freddy Krueger's got the blades coming out of his hands, like the Wolverine, and Jason Kruger wears a hockey mask. So at least starting with Friday the 13th Part Three. Um, so the American Ring series crops on television. It's nothing like that in the Japanese novel, and so what I want to say is that the Japanese movie already has is a departure from the novel, and then the American movie is not an adaptation of the novel, but an adaptation of the Japanese movie, and so it's a derivative of a derivative. And so in the story, especially in the first one, they talk about like making a copy of the tape and then giving someone else that tape to watch it to remove the curse, and so there's kind of a meta thing going on where like as Ring movies are made, they're made they they become more and more derivatives, and it becomes the story is more and more diluted as it's retold in different ways. Just as when you make a video copy of something back in the old days before we digitized everything, um, we had cassette tapes or VHS tapes. As you made copies of it, each copy was in less quality because you're not copying the original, and so there's deterioration as you make copies. And what's interesting is that Spiral is the sequel to the book, and I understand that they did do a Japanese version of Spiral. Um, so that's all because my mouth is all swollen. Um, that wasn't received very well. And then I think the American movie Rings, which is the third movie in the series, allegedly has elements from the novel Spiral. But I read the summary of the movie, or I think that's what they call, or whatever they call that, um, and didn't sound like the book at all to me. So let's get into it. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to say before was that normally I just read horror in October and then move on to like I usually read historical novels, and then every once in a while I'll jump around and read other genres here and there. But I was really taken in by The Ring and wanted to read more. So let's get to it. So we're gonna add this to the stage. All right. So here's the path. If you follow me on Facebook, and I hope you do, send me a friend request, and I'll as long as I get a lot of friend requests that look like accounts that were just previously made, and it looked like bullshit. So a lot of times I don't believe it when I get a friend request from someone. It doesn't look like a real person. So send me a friend request, and if I don't reply right away, send me a message. Say, hey, it's me. I'm a real person, and then we'll be friends. Also, down below in the description, there's a link to Amazon if you want to click on and check out Spiral yourself, or if you want to what are the other links? Check out my books or join my email list. And you want to join my email list because I have next week I'm gonna have a special on Rampage on the River. That's book one of my series. Well, the Kindle version is going to be 99 cents, and everybody on my list is going to get a notification that it's 99 cents in the US, and then the following week it'll be 99 pence in the UK. And once again, I'll notify everybody that. And eventually, I'm going to write a free and exclusive novel just for my email list. So please get on that if you can. All right, so here here's my method here. I read the book, I write a review, I put it on Amazon and um, Goodreads, and then I also put it on my blog, my WordPress blog, and then it's my WordPress blog that I share everywhere because I'd rather, if people are going to click on something, I'd rather them click on my blog and join my blog, and because I can also promote not only the book I'm reviewing, but then at the very end of the review is a promotion for my book. So here we go. And I got to make sure that, yeah, I always fall for this. So um, I realize that when I click on it on a share screen, the share screen doesn't follow where it goes. So I have to do that myself. Here we go. All right. And let me just make sure that's there. This the computer is sitting on pillow, so that's why it's a little shaky here. All right. So here's my review. There's me, my fiddle. Uh, that's weird. It goes. It's not okay. I think I keep doing this wrong. Let me see if what I'm seeing over here. Okay. For some reason, when I click on it, there we go. Sometimes it goes to the home page of my blog, and sometimes it goes to the actual article. And what we want is the actual article. So here we go. Let me share this. All right, here we go. Let me just make sure you're seeing it too before I go any further. Yep, there you are. All right. All right. Book review Spiral by Koji Suzuki. A creepy combining of medical horror and paranormal thriller. Even though this is a sequel to the Ring novel, which spawned Japanese and American film adaptation, this is a completely different story and a different direction from the cinematic sequels. Spiral picks up immediately after Ring. It introduces a new character, Ando Mitsu, who is a medical examiner intent on deciphering his friend's mysterious death, only to discover a horrifying pattern that threatens all of humanity. The plot is a slow burn that prods along like a crime procedural. Ando and his friend Miyashita investigate a curse that works much like a virus, killing his host 7 days after the victim watches a mysterious videotape. But as Ando and Miyashita draw nearer to the truth, the virus is changing, mutating into something more sinister. The book definitely has some creepy moments and a surprise ending that I was only able to see coming in the last 15% of the book. Spiral is full of some heady stuff, and at times it goes deep into medical and code breaking segments that were a bit laborious for me, but still very interesting. The ending was satisfying, leaving room for more. Pay attention to the details along the way because nothing is wasted or forgotten. I originally only meant to read the first book, but was compelled to read this one immediately after. I look forward to continuing the saga with the next book, Loop. I guess he's got me trapped now. So check out Suzuki's Spiral here, and this is why I love doing things on um, my what is this WordPress, because it'll do embedded. Sorry, preview unavailable. All right, so much for that. But you can preview my book right here, The Prussian Prince, and you can buy it right off that. Uh, it's gonna let me preview. Yeah. Okay. Great. So, like I said, I've seen the American version of this of Ring, and I've also seen the sequel Ring 2. This book is not Ring 2. This is I mean it's Ring 2 as far as the literary version, but it's utterly a different book. It First of all, Ring itself, the novel's completely different from the movie, so it ends differently. But what's really interesting is that, like I said, it becomes almost like a medical horror and a paranormal thriller because the new character is a friend of one of the two characters that was in the previous books. And he is doing an autopsy and he's finding a pattern that all the this is where we're going to get into slight spoilers, but I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. I'm just going to give you a few things along the way, but leave most of the book a mystery. They find that basically that all the people that have died from this thing, from the ring curse, have some kind of growth that eventually stops the heart in the 7 days. And in the ring, you find out that the story of the ring is that there was a girl, her mother had paranormal abilities, and the mother had an affair with a doctor, a college professor who studied her, and they had a daughter together. And the daughter is the main villain, I guess, in this. And she's a hermaphrodite. She has exceptional ability with is it no, telekinesis is moving things through your mind. It's what telepathy, that kind of stuff. At some point, she is back in the 50s or whatever. She goes to or 60s maybe. She goes to visit her father on an island that and there's an asylum where they have the last people that have the smallpox virus. And a man who is there sexually assaults her and then tries to strangle her, thinks he kills her, throws her in a well, and then covers her with rocks, and thinks he killed her. And so basically the way the videotape is created is that later on a resort is built um, over top of where that well was. And so she is able to use her power to to one of the things that she could do while she was alive is you could give her blank film and she could project images onto the film. Yeah, the film would be like an envelope and she could project images. And the video you find out is it's not actually shot with a camera. It's actually her visual memories that her spirit, whatever, in that well is projecting onto. Because at some point, and this is all in the first novel, some point a family stays there, and the kid wants to record his favorite show out of Tokyo, but something happened. I can't remember. They turn off the TV or something, but they don't turn off the VHS recorder. And so she's able to project these images and this curse onto the tape. And this is the thing that causes people to die. And uh, and there's kind of and it's originally watched by like a group of kids and they start dying. And this is the first book. And in the first book, and then this investigative reporter starts looking into it and then he gets ensnared into the whole thing. So in the second book, it moves on to a new character who is a medical examiner, and they're looking into how are these people dying, and they come to find out that all of them have this like growth that stops their heart. You have a co-host. I do, yeah. So I'm at Laura's house. Can you see that? This is Shatsky. That's Laura's cat. If you weren't here earlier, I had an MRI today, and the place to have an MRI is right down the street. So Laura and I usually spend Wednesday night together, and usually she comes to me. But since I was on this side of town for a doctor's appointment, I figured, well, I'll just come here. Oh yeah, yeah, that's Lord, you have a cold. Shotzi, can you say hi? She never shuts up. Of course, she won't talk now. Come here, baby. Let me corral you. Can you say hi to everybody? Can you meow? Meow. Okay. You go back to your business. Sorry for disturbing you. Um, so then they find out that they take samples of the tissue and find out that somehow a very smallpox like virus has fused itself into this growth that is killing the people. And this puts them on a path. And this is where it comes into like a kind of a medical horror, because there's a lot of medical procedural investigation in which there's autopsies and hypotheses and experimenting. And I guess in the end, and I'm not gonna spoil any further, but it's as if like the paranormal part has fused with the biological part and has created a new menace that is partially paranormal and partially a derivative of the smallpox virus. If that makes any sense. And I will tell you that the first book really didn't have a whole lot of like jumping out at you scary stuff. It wasn't. Both of them didn't really even feel like horror novels. They felt like almost like crime procedural. Like the first one really felt like a crime procedural, as opposed that was kind of creepy. The Spiral does have some creepy, scary moments in it that I felt like the first one lacked. And maybe it's because when they made the movie, they made it a horror movie. Like The Ring, the American version of The Ring is definitely a horror movie. Absolutely. The book is more of a paranormal thriller. And then Spiral, I would say, would add kind of um, medical horror to it as well. There is, yeah, there's definitely some ghostly things that happen that gave me the willies. Uh, I would say that in the middle, some of the bits about there was a lot about deciphering codes, and there's a lot about biology, in which there's even diagrams of DNA and things that got a little too much for me, more than I really wanted to get into. But it was interesting, and I think part of it was I lived in Japan in the early 2000s, and the two books take place in the same place where I live, which is in the greater Tokyo area, about 10 years prior. So it still felt very much like I remembered what Japan is like living there. And so there was a little bit of a nostalgia for me, um, uh, uh, reading it and kind of reliving how modern Japanese life is. And there's part of me, I've always said that if things really went poor for me, that I could go back to Japan and teach English like I did before. I know authors, I know at least two authors who live in Japan or live somewhere in Asia, and they teach English and write novels, and they do okay. That would be interesting. Hey, what's going on with me? So we're moving on. So that's basically my review. I hope you enjoyed it. I would definitely say read. Well, I'll tell you what. I read some of the other reviews, and one of the complaints somebody wrote, and he wasn't wrong. He's like a big chunk of this book is just retracing everything that happened in the first book, and I think that's true. I think there was a lot of um, kind of relearning everything I learned in the first one, and I feel like if you like weren't interested in reading the first book, you could read this one, and you would have enough information. And I think that's a smart technique, something that I try to do with all my novels. I'm writing book 6 right now, and I'm making sure that everything you need to know that happened in the previous novels is explained somehow in this previous one. So if you pick up The French Fiasco, which is the book that I'll be putting out soon, you'll know what's going on. All right, so what's going on with The French Fiasco? I just I wrote the first 4 parts, and then I took a little bit of a break to figure out how I wanted to land the ship what I wanted to happen in part five, and what I needed to go back and kind of um, go back and install in earlier into the story so that it all made sense. So basically, I made a list of everything I want to have happen, and then made a list of everything that should have happened beforehand. Did all that work, and then Monday I started working on part five, which is the final part of the book. I'm hoping to keep part five under 20,000 words. Right now, I just finished chapter 28, which is the first chapter of part five, and I'm sitting right about 85,000 words. And uh, my goal is to get to the end without rushing it. So, but not drawing it out either, because I feel like the perfect Goldilocks of the length of a novel is about 80,000 words. So that's about a 350 page novel, no, normal novel. But you should never go by page count, because pages can have different amounts of, depends on the font and the size and things like that. But roughly, I think that's a good consumable novel. It's not too short, it's not too long. It's just the right, and it's what. Not that I'm looking for publishers, but it's what publishers look for a lot. They want right around 80. They don't want something too short. They want something too long. And I also think that people tend to shy away from really long books, like this, War and Peace or Shogun. You have to kind of make a commitment to reading a book that's over 100,000 words. So I'm hoping to keep mine in under 100,000. I feel like once I go back, I will be merciless in editing. So hopefully, if it's really long, I'll be able to kind of whittle it down and really tighten up the writing and tighten up the my own prose. I've been chopping away at adjectives and adverbs and unnecessary statements and all unnecessary words, just whiting everything I do. Yeah, but I finished chapter 28, which is called "The Rise of the Republic," and also I was thinking this is kind of interesting. So I have. It's not that I made decisions. I just started writing and found certain patterns that I like and the way I like to write. And first of all, I like to. I notice that my chapters tend to be around 3,000 words. And sometimes they get close to four, sometimes even five. Sometimes chapters are around 1,200 words, but 3,000 tends to be my average. And each chapter is like a short story to me. And the way I write, every chapter has its own. It has a title and has its own story. Um, I also know that there's a certain thing to pacing that I feel like as you get close to the end of a novel, things should be happening faster. So in my book, part four, the big climax of part four is the Battle of Sedan, which is really the biggest climax of the whole book. And every one of my books has had like a marquee battle at the end. And for this it's the Battle of Sedan, which is huge. And so part five, which to me is the most important part of the whole book, it's the reason why I wanted to write the book, is kind of an extended denouement of of falling off after action. So I want to make it exciting, which it is, and I want it to move. So I wrote uh, chapter 28 has only got 1,500 words instead of 3,000. And I don't know if I'm going to do this, but I think I'm going to start tightening up the chapters so that after the big battle, the chapters that follow are fast, and because they're moving you quickly now that things are going to come to a head. Because this book here, The French Fiasco, is going to top off. It's going to be a resting place for my series. So all the previous, all six books kind of come to a certain stopping point. Um, if that makes any sense, because then I'm going to step away from going further with the series or with the main narrative. The next thing and just saying that real quick, my goal is what I would like to have happen is that to publish it well before March, because I'm going to be in New Haven. I'm going to have a table, and last year I had the Prussian Prince, so it'd be great to show up there with a new book. So that's kind of my goal. That means if I back time that, that means that I should probably publish around mid February, so I have enough time to order copies so I can take them to Memphis or New Haven. That means I should finish my rough draft around December, mid December. So I like to have two months um, to edit. That may not seem like enough time for a lot of people, but everybody has different systems of writing, and I'm not saying that mine's the best. I'm saying what's worked for me. It's what worked for me. Um, Stephen King in On Writing will tell you, don't don't do any revisions. Just write all the way through in pants. Just sit down and start writing, and don't worry about plotting it out or any kind of structure. Just write until it's done. Put it away for 6 months. Bring it back out. Read it over and start making changes. I could never write that way. I do a lot of revisions as I go, mostly because I want to know where I'm going, and I want to tighten that up. So, and I don't want to have to go back and do all this work to change things. So, real quickly, my system is when I get up. I mean, right now, this is what I'm doing. I get up at 5, or somewhere in the 5 o'clock. The alarm goes up at 5. I might lay in bed for a little bit, but by 6 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, I sit in my writer's chair. I set the timer for an hour and a half, and I write. And I try to write at least 500 words, maybe more. And then once the alarm goes off, I can have breakfast, and then I start the rest of my day. There might be more writing, there might be some editing, there might be marketing things, there might be working my other job, all the different things I do in my day. Practice the fiddle, work out, all that kind of stuff. But when I sit down and write, I uh, the first thing I do is I go back and I reread my last session. And the biggest reason why I do that is because I want to get it in my head. I want to get my head back into that space so that I can continue where I left off. And I allow myself to make revisions as I go. So I reread that first part and I do some editing right there and then. Then once I get past that, then I start writing for the new day, and go forward. If I write several sessions in a day, every time I sit down, I read the last bit that I wrote, and then continue from there. Once I finish a chapter, and to me, a chapter is a short story. It's an episode of it's a titled episode on Netflix. Once I finish that, then I stop writing until I have processed the um, the chapter. So I will I'll run it through spell check first. Then I'll read it out loud to myself, make any changes. Then I'll have Siri read it because I will I will correct it as I read out loud. It's a bad habit of mine. And so listening to someone else read it, I can hear mistakes that I normally would not have caught, or I would have subconsciously corrected myself. Once I do that, I copy and paste it into Grammarly, and then I look at all the things that Grammarly tells me. Some of the things I don't agree with Grammarly. Sometimes I keep it the way it is. Once I do that, I copy and paste. I insert it into the main document. So basically, when I write, I have a master document, which is where I'm building the whole book. But I write each chapter in its own document, so that it's easier to navigate in. So once it's ready, I send a copy of it to Laura so that if I lose everything, she's got copies of all my stuff in her email, and then I add it to the master document, and then I start the next chapter. That's basically the pattern. Then at any given time, if I decide I need a stopping point and go back and fix things because I'm going to go in a different direction than I originally But I'll press the pause button. I might go back and insert things into different parts of the book. In this case, I actually created a whole new chapter, chapter 14. It wasn't something that just popped out of my head out of nowhere. It was something that I had considered when I was originally writing, but I didn't know if I wanted to go in that direction. So once I decided, then all I had to do is go back to those points where, and so I wrote an entire new chapter 14 and then bumped all the chapters after that up a number. And then finally, when I finish, so by the time I'm done with the rough draft, the developmental editing is over. I've done all that. There's not going to be a whole lot of changing the story at that time. There might be inserting things like, oh, I need to go back and put a little scene here to set that up better, or oops, I changed that guy's name halfway through the book. Fix all those things. But then I spent about a month or several weeks myself going through the entire novel, using reading out loud, having Siri read it, putting it through spell check, putting it through Grammarly, tightening it up, getting it as clean as possible, sending it off to Laura. She works on it for about 2 weeks, and then I get back and make all her changes. Or sometimes she doesn't make changes; she just questions things, and so it draws my attention, and I say, "Oh yeah, you're right. That's a mistake," or "No, that's what I meant." And then I have my mom read it over as well, and then by that time it's ready. So if I get done mid-December, hopefully all that will take place by February. I'll have it out, and we'll have print copies ready to go to New Haven um, in the beginning of March. Right after that, I am going to start writing the Underground Railroad Ball, and it is a novella, and I'm really excited about this. I'm gonna do one of these lives talking about it, but um, I saw Carl Duncan. If you don't know who he is, look him up on YouTube. He's got great YouTube, very informational, 10-minute long videos about on writing. And I really love his advice. And but he talked about like the different sizes uh, of fiction, from flash fiction to short story to novelette to novella to novel, and then I would add series and universe, and then body of work. So, and the lines of delineation between the different sizes of fiction, um, they get very similar to each other when you're close to the border. But the difference between a novel and a novella, other than novellas are shorter, is that novellas tend to be more single focused, where a novel, not always, but novels can be very single focused too. But novels a lot of times tends to have several storylines intertwining with each other, and sometimes even points of view. Um, so no, I would say a novella is somewhere between like 20 to 40,000 words, and a novel is like 50 and up. And so yeah, there's a 10,000 word gap there, because something that's 45,000 words might be a novella, might be a novel. But anyway, when I write a novel, and I write it in parts, and most of my books are in parts. The only two that are not are my first one and my fifth one, by the way, which are more singular in their storytelling. But I like to think of my parts as novellas, and I'm just kind of forming this idea. And so, part five of the French Fiasco is like the French Fiasco really should be like five novellas that are contained in one novel, but it's one continuous story, of course. But I like that idea, and I've heard some other authors talk about how much they like writing novellas, because it's faster and it's a more singular focused story. So that's kind of my experiment. That A, part five is written like a novella, and B, the next book I write is going to be a novella. It's going to be a book a novella that is exclusive and free to my email list. And this is a marketing technique that I've been learning from Brian Cohen. And it's basically you want to build if you're an author, you want to build an email list because you don't own Facebook. You can get kicked off of Twitter. You have followings on Amazon, but you have no way of contacting those people. But you own your email list. So if you have dedicated readers who are interested and want to buy your books, get an email list because you can market directly to them. And one of the ways you get people to sign up for it is you offer them something free, what they call marketing a lead loss. And the suggestion is a short story or a novella. And so I'm going to write a novella. And it's really weird because it'll be the first thing I've written that I don't have any intention of selling or making any direct money off of. So that will be kind of interesting. It's going to take place in Detroit just before Rampage on the River happens. And so Laura and I are going back to Detroit for Thanksgiving to see my mom and my and possibly my sisters and their families. And I told Laura I want to take one research day to go back downtown. I want to go look at some of the houses I lived in when I was a child, but I also want to kind of go and map out, walk around downtown Detroit and try to map out where like the city of Detroit was in 1861, what it looked like, October 1861, which I think is where my book starts. So that, I mean, I just got done writing like 3 books that take place in places I've never been. So it's fun to go back and be able to write something that I'm actually from Detroit. So that's gonna be a fun experiment. Then after that, we're gonna write Black James, and that one is gonna be epic. And I don't have a time frame for that. I my I always say that you should never your book should be at the closest 6 months apart and at the furthest 4 years. But really, my perfect area is 9 months to 2 years. So I'm hoping to get the novella done within 6 months or so after writing, finishing the French Fiasco. Once the novella is out, then I start working on Black James, and I may take up to 2 years. Probably not, but I'm going to give myself some time and let it breathe because I want to knock it out of the park. It may be a new beginning. Black James is not going to be a continuation of the main story that after the French Fiasco. Black James is going to back up to the late 1700s, and it's going to be a character novel of a character that you meet in the Mask of My Love if you haven't read it yet. And I think it's gonna tell that man's story and bring him at least up to the point where we see him in Mask of My Love, maybe further. So I don't know if I'm going to make that book 7 or if that is going to be like kind of a standalone side car to the main sequence. And then after that, I have 4 more sequential novels that will be part of the series, which will end with either right at the doorstep of World War One or with World War that. And then I have other books planned. I mean, I have the next like 10 books planned out already. The next book after that will be kind of either a interbellum or the beginning of World War II. It won't be a continuation of the series. So I don't know if it's going to be everything's in the same universe, but I don't know if this is going to be a continuation like a book 12 or if it's just going to be its own book that comes out of the same universe that I've been writing. We'll see. So that's basically it. Rampage on the River will be 99 cents next week on Kindle. I'll put out an email. So sign up for my my Kindle or I'm sorry, my email list down below. Also, I've gotten 100 ratings on that book for the first time. It's my first book to hit 100 ratings. And it came from my friend Jack Scott. who, for some strange reason, lost his ability to review books. Um, and he had to like fight with them and go through customer support, and they finally okayed him because he said he was gonna at least rate it, if not review it. He bought the digital version, and it had been sitting. It was like it had been climbing slowly and slowly. It was at 99% or 99 ratings. Those are the stars, and Jack just pushed it over the top. Now it's 100, and people say that once you get over 100 ratings, that it's hard for me to say with my mouth with my affliction here, that but the algorithm starts showing it to more people. I don't know. We'll see. It has been selling lately. Last few days, I've been selling quite a few copies. So we'll see, man. That'll be interesting to know. So, Jack, I know you're never going to watch this, but thank you very much, and everybody else. If not me, your favorite author out there, make sure you're giving them 5-star ratings on Amazon and Goodreads, and if you can, write a few nice lines. You don't have to write something as long as I did for Spiral. You can just say, "Hey, I really liked it. It was full of action, couldn't put down, whatever," and that helps out the author. And it also helps. There's so many people out there that that give you like 1-star reviews for dumb reasons, so that kind of balances that. So if you love an author out there, help them out. Give them some stars. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon, and thanks for tuning in. And keep reading.